All right, everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Naomi Manuel, and I'm with the Epilepsy Foundation of Hawaii. This is November, it's Epilepsy Awareness Month, and we are so honored to have our guests here from Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience. We have Catherine Mitchell and Alec Sheppard, research coordinators, clinical research coordinators at Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience, and they are gracious enough to come in and join us and tell us all the wonderful things that they're doing along with Dr. Corey Liao and Dr. Vimala Vajala at the Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience. So without further ado, I'd like them to introduce themselves again and tell us a little or a lot about Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience and what you all do for the epilepsy community here in Hawaii.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Naomi. I wanted to first and foremost take the time to thank Naomi for all of her hard work with the Epilepsy Foundation for Hawaii. For those of you who don't know, Naomi has been working tirelessly to advocate for the Hawaii epilepsy population. We at Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience has had the great honor and privilege to be working closely with Naomi for the past 3 to 4 years. And I can tell you that there's no other woman or man who works harder than Naomi in order to advocate for our Hawaii community. So if we may, please let's give her a round of applause for Naomi.
Oh my goodness, you're so silly.
We absolutely love and adore you, and we're so thrilled to be invited to speak to you folks about what Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience is and what we're doing at our Comprehensive Epilepsy Research Unit. So to get started, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience company, we have 4 clinic locations, 3 on Oahu and 1 on Big Island. And as a whole, we have been doing epilepsy research for 5 years now. Today, Alec and I are going to be speaking about 2 of our epilepsy trials that we want the Hawaii epilepsy community to know about. And if we want a nice dialogue, so if you have any questions, we will be putting our phone number as well as our email address at the very last slide. But as Naomi said, November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. So what better way to inform the community than letting you guys know what epilepsy research we have in Hawaii. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
All righty.
Perfect.
Oh no, here, let me display settings. Okay, here we go. So as mentioned, we are Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience, the Comprehensive Epilepsy Research Unit. And the first trial we wanted to jump into is called the X-TOLL trial. So what the X-TOLL trial is, it's looking at a study medication that's the oral pill XEN1101. With all clinical trials, as they're being studied, they don't have a name such as Keppra or levetiracetam. It's still the molecule number. So for this trial, the molecule or the pill is called XEN1101. Now, the study will help determine if this drug will reduce seizures in people with focal onset epilepsy. Alec is going to do a really good job explaining more about focal onset epilepsy for those of you who aren't as familiar with it. And the molecule XEN1101 is a novel selective potassium channel modulator, which means that this drug works a different way than the current medications on the market. Now, you may be wondering, Catherine, who is able to qualify for this trial? Well, great question. So we're looking for folks between the ages of 18 to 75, so adults only, and who have had focal onset or partial onset epilepsy diagnosis for 2 or more years.
All right, thank you, Catherine. And in those previous slides with the previous trial, we discussed focal onset epilepsy a lot. So I want to give just a quick refresher. I know many people will be familiar with this, but just a quick refresher on what exactly focal onset epilepsy is. So focal onset epilepsy, like as it sounds, it has a focused or a localized area of the seizure activity in the brain. Unlike generalized epilepsy, which starts in both sides of the brain at the same time, focal onset epilepsy starts only on one side of the brain, resulting in recurring seizures. Focal onset seizures can become generalized seizures. They start in one specific part of the brain and then can spread to the entire brain. So one thing to think about with focal onset seizures is that there can be many varying symptoms. So depending on where the seizure activity is occurring in the brain, that can be related to what kind of symptoms or manifestations that the seizures actually take. So there are two main types of focal seizures: focal aware seizures and focal impaired awareness seizures, which sounds just like it sounds. Focal aware seizure, someone is aware that the seizure is happening. Focal impaired awareness is when someone either loses consciousness or has altered states of consciousness during the seizure. Both of these types of seizures can also either have motor or non-motor components. So like I said before, depending on where the seizure is occurring in the brain, you can have motor symptoms, including repeated movements, jerking, or loss of muscle tone, loss of control over your muscles. Or you could have non-motor symptoms, such as that does not include any muscular activity, such as alterations or changes in thinking or mental state, different sensations or emotions. So that can involve things like a strange smell, a metallic taste, or feelings of deja vu, things like that. And so for our second trial, this is called the REALIZE trial. And the study medication, similar to the previous one, does not have a nice, easy to say name. As of right now, the study medication is called CVL-865, and it's taken twice a day, both in the morning and the evening before bed. The purpose of the study is to see if the study medication, CVL-865, is effective in decreasing the number of focal onset seizures without causing too many side effects. So one of the main points of this study is to understand the safety and tolerability of the study medication. This medication is a positive allosteric modulator of specialized GABA sites. So that's what sets it apart from previous seizure medications that may already be available on the market. This particular medication is more specialized than what's currently available. So in order to participate in the REALIZE trial, some of the key criteria, we're looking for individuals between the ages of 18 and 75 years of age. You must be diagnosed with focal onset seizures for the last 2 years and must have failed 2 other AEDs or anti-epileptic drugs. Now, what failed means here is just that the previous medications didn't fully or adequately control your seizure. So fail doesn't mean that you necessarily stopped them, just that you've tried them before and they did not fully control the seizures that one is experiencing.
And then I wanted to jump into clinical research general points. We get a lot of questions saying, you know, Catherine, I don't really know what clinical research is. Am I going to be a lab rat? Is this going to, what's going to happen to me? So I want to first and foremost say that participation is entirely voluntary. If at any point a patient or participant says, oh, you know, Alec, I don't have time to go for this trial anymore, or I don't want to take this study medication anymore, that's absolutely fine. And we just ask that we follow up for safety precautions to make sure first and foremost you're safe. And the second point I wanted to make is that there's no cost to you as a participant to participate in the research studies. We get a lot of questions about, oh, what insurance do you take for research? Or oh, how much is my copay going to be for a research visit? And I'm happy to inform it's absolute zero cost for the participant to participate for the research studies. And then the other question is, oh, you know, what are the benefits of participating? Well, first, your participation may help in advancing medical options for future generations. All of the current epilepsy medications, your Vimpat, your lamotrigine, your Keppra, all of those had gone through clinical research trials to see if it's safe and if it's tolerable for participants with epilepsy. So participating in the new trials may help future generations for folks who have focal onset epilepsy. And then I always get the question, I know you folks have 4 locations, but where's the research center? Well, that's a great question. The research center is located at St. Francis in Honolulu. However, all of our neurologists do go to all 4 locations, but research specifically is in town and on Liliha Street. And I always have questions from neighbor island patients saying, oh, well, Catherine, I live in Hilo or I live in Kona. Am I able to participate? And the answer is yes. With research, we are able to help out with travel and whatnot. So if you're on the neighbor island, you're not forgotten. Please reach out to us so we can see what we can do to accommodate. But we have had many neighbor island patients in the past who participated in clinical research specifically for epilepsy. And with that being said, I wanted to say, if you have any questions on anything that Alec and I have talked about, or if you want to reach out to us, please call us at our research hotline at 808-564-6141. And you can either ask for Catherine or Alec, or any one of our research staff will be able to assist you. Alternatively, if you prefer to email, you can email us at info@hawaiineuroscience.com. And that email is manned 24/7, so you will receive a response within 1 business days. But I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. That way you can see Naomi's beautiful face as well as mine and Alec's beautiful face.
Thanks for that, you guys. It's really interesting. So you have the 2 drugs that you're researching right now. Would you mind sharing what the process would be? So someone either emailed or called your hotline. What would the steps be in order to be considered for to be a candidate for research? What would that look like?
Absolutely. So the first step for any participation in any research trial is going to be the screening visit. So that's again, as we said, participation is voluntary, starting from the screening visit all the way throughout. So that is where you come in, you would meet the team, we discuss in detail the study. Before you agree to participate, there's a process called informed consent that we go through everything there is to know about the study. Any medical questions are answered by one of our physicians, one of our investigators on the trial. And that is where we're able to see if an individual is a good fit for the trial. And so the first step would be to schedule a screening visit with us. And so there are many steps, lots of safety steps taken before one actually begins their participation, as in before they receive any sort of medication from the study. There will be many checks and balances that are covered to ensure that it's safe and useful for someone to continue their participation in the trial.
Exactly. And one thing I'd just like to add to Alex's point is that during the informed consent, we also talk in detail about the chance for placebo or the sugar pill, because with clinical trials, there's always a chance of having the sugar pill or the non-active treatment versus the active treatment that we're looking to study in. However, I will let the Hawaii community know that for both trials, they have what's called an open label extension phase at the end, meaning after the study duration ends, you're guaranteed the medication for at least 1 year. And we really like how the companies designed it this way, because ultimately, if it was up to us, if it was up to our neurologist, Dr. Lia, Dr. Vimala, we would always make sure that our participants get the active drug. However, that's not how the clinical trials work. The FDA requires that there's a control group or the placebo group to compare to see whether the active medication really does what it's supposed to do. Right. So with that being said, we're very happy to be, at the very least, offer the open label after the certain study ends.
Cool. How long are these studies?
Sure. So for they vary slightly, but so both of them, they have an 8 to 10 week period, which is the double blind period, which is what we were just talking about, that there might be you might be on placebo or you might be on active medication.
Mhm.
And for those 8 to 10 weeks, both the participant won't know which treatment they're on,
And we won't.
and also the study team, including the doctors, won't know at that time. But after those 8 to 10 weeks, then there is a minimum of a year that individuals can have open label access, meaning they are guaranteed access to the medication. We know what the dose is and things like that, so we can find a regimen that is best for the participant.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think if anyone has any questions, they can also reach out to me and I will connect them with you. Thank you for your screen. If they didn't see your screen, yeah, anyone who's watching can reach out to me and I'll definitely connect you with Catherine and Alex. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you. I think that's it for my questions. I think the process is, it's pretty cumbersome and comprehensive, which is safe. And I just want to thank you all for what you're doing. Both of you, Dr. Vimala Vajala and Dr. Corey Liao, for all the advances that you're making within the epilepsy community to make it better for all of us. So I just wanted to thank you so much for that, and then taking time off to talk with us and just share your knowledge. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much, and I and I hope you guys have a good day.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much. And to all the epilepsy warriors out there, we see you and we commend you.
Aloha.
Aloha.